All right. Before we get started, I just want to do a little sound check. Molly, how does the audio sound? Am I using the right? I think I'm using the right um, microphone, so I think we'll be good. Good. All right. So what we're doing here, let me kind of give you a recap of where we. Thank you. Let me kind of give you a recap of what we're talking about. So we're in the due diligence process of the engagement. This is where we look over your shoulder to make sure you're doing everything right in the acquisition of the multifamily property. And so the way I teach due diligence is the fact that we break it down into three categories. You've got the financial due diligence, the legal due diligence, and the physical due diligence. Last week, we talked about the legal, which is essentially the title insurance work. Okay. Took you through the whole process of how that works. Now, today, I'm going to run through the financial due diligence and the physical due diligence and give you some highlights on that. So here's how it works. Now, the biggest mistake new investors make is that when they get a deal under contract and they've signed the purchase and sale contract, they book their flights, they jump in a plane, they get down to the property, and they just want to go through every single unit. Well, you're jumping the gun, because before any of that happens, you have to complete the legal due diligence, which is going on behind the scenes, and then you have to complete the financial due diligence. If the property cannot pass muster with the legal due diligence or the financial due diligence, why bother getting out of your seat? Why bother getting hotel rooms and airline flights and taking time to go off and do it? You're crazy. So when you first get that deal under contract, keep your butt in your seat and capture all of the financial information, all the documents that was provided to you in the due diligence request. And so let's talk for a moment about the financial due diligence. Now, here's what you need to do. Understand, and the best way to look at yourself and what your responsibility is at this point is you must act as a fiduciary. You are essentially acting as a fiduciary to your investors, and you don't even know who they are yet. But you're going to perform as if someday in the future, you're going to have to sit in front of these people and justify everything about this deal and why you think it's a great deal and why they should put their money into the deal. So you're going to make sure that you go through this financial due diligence like a forensic accountant. Like you're going to find they're hiding something from you and you're going to figure out what it is. And if you can't figure it out what it is and you've done a fantastic job, then go see the property. But if you can't make something work, if the numbers just aren't jiving, don't let your money go hard. All right. So just keep those things in mind. So let's walk you through the financial due diligence aspect of this process. Let me take a swig. That's not the water that I typically drink here in the office. This happened to be sitting on my desk. It's like warm car water. All right. But what's the whistle? All right. So here we go. The first thing you're going to do to rebuild the financials is take the 12 months of bank statements. Now, here's how it goes. If you use our template document, we always ask for 12 months of bank statements. And most people say no. And we say, then we are not going to do this deal. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Why? I mean, you're buying a property. What do you care about the bank statements? So what do you mean? What do I care? I'm not buying a property. I'm buying a business. If I was buying your Subway franchise, would you show me the financials or would you just show me the rolls? I need to know how this property operates as a business. And for me to do my forensic accounting and figure it all out, I need a starting point. And the starting point comes, most every document has to come from an independent third party. In this particular case, it's the bank. So I want to capture all of the financial activity, really just the deposits. I want to capture the financial activity on this property for the last 12 months. I want to see exactly how much you've collected in rents, how much income has come in. And this is, real cash. This is, you can't put concessions into a bank account. So this is real hard cash. Now, they're going to put up an objection during the negotiation of the P&S stage. And they say, well, listen, I own a bunch of, let me give you the best ones I've heard. And I hear them all the time. I own several properties and I just commingled the money together. So it would be virtually impossible for me to show you the actual deposits on this property. No, that's not going to work. And here's why. Is this property owned by a separate LLC? Yes. Well, then you have to file a return on that LLC, don't you? You submit K-1s either to yourself or your investors, right? Yes. Well, don't you hire an accountant to do it? Yes, of course. I would never do it myself because I obviously am a terrible bookkeeper. Right. So if your accountant did the taxes on this property, he's going to sign off on it. And he's never going to sign off on it if he can't confirm the deposits. So just show me what you gave him to confirm the deposits and we'll move on. That's one of the things. The other one is, listen, I know you need to see this, but I use this property like it's an ATM. And I pay for a lot of different expenses out of that account. So I don't necessarily want you to see all of that stuff. And your answer to that is, oh, that's okay. I don't need to see what you're spending your money on. All I want to do is confirm how much money you've taken in. And see, when you do that, that says like, oh boy, okay, yeah, I see what you're looking for. Okay, fine. Here are my 12 months of bank statements. And that way you can start building your forensic financial report. And it starts at the top line, which is the cash coming in. And that's verified by the bank deposits. And from there, you can then determine exactly how the property is performing. Now, here's a trick. You've got to make sure that you look at the deposits. And if you see any deposits that end in 3 zeros, red flag. Why would a deposit ending in 3 zeros be a red flag? This is going to be it. I'm going to type it right here. Why would seeing a deposit that ends in 3 zeros be a red flag when buying the property? Okay, so I just posted a question there. So I want to see your answers. Let me see what you think the reason is for that. All right. So now that you've got that information, then and remember, that's going to be the gross collected rents. Everything that's like one of the last income lines you see is gross collected rents. And of course, there may be other income in there, and you want to be able to carve that out as well. But the gross collected rents, above the gross collected rents on our forensic trailing 12 financial statement, will all be the gross potential rent and all the income reducers like concessions, vacancy, economic and physical, bad debt, all of those things that go towards reducing the gross potential down to what gets deposited in the bank. And also you've got, obviously, as I was just mentioning, other income. You're going to have to be able to figure out all the other income charges as well. And, that's either something that's put directly onto a lease, like a parking space or a storage unit, or it's something that is another line item like other like laundry income. So you're going to have to figure out a way to account for that as well. Usually in that particular case, what happens, it's going to be easy, especially if it's a laundry contract and you have an outside vendor doing it. My outside vendors pay me on a quarterly basis, so you can easily see which other income comes from the laundry income, and you can put it right in there. So that's how we're going to start to build the financials. Then obviously we put in the expenses. You got your typical 9 categories of multifamily. Oh my gosh. Copy DM just said, good Thurston Howell imitation. There's a guy that comes into our office who calls me Thurston. And I couldn't talk to him last time he was in the office, but I heard him say, have a good day, lovey. And I said, hey, knock it off. Because I know he was making fun of me when he said it. Yeah, I can do a really good Thurston Howell. That's good. Molly was listening to some of my voices earlier too. I can do many voices. So all right. So now we get through the expenses. Now we're working through the expenses. You got the 9 categories of expenses. All right. I'm just going to rattle them off the top of my head. So you got the taxes. Make sure you go and verify the taxes with the town. And here's the other thing. You had better understand what happens in that community when property trades hands as it relates to the property taxes. In Texas, you are in for a hurting if they find out that you sold the property, bought it at a much different price than what they have it assessed. It's a non-disclosure state. They can come whack you. It's such crap. I can't stand those types of states. But then the same thing is true in South Carolina. When a property exchanges hands in South Carolina, they totally give you a stepped up basis practically in the valuation of the property, and you get hit with a big tax. I'm telling you right now, that's killed some deals. And if you don't know that that's how your jurisdiction is covering property taxes, shame on you. You are doing a huge disservice to your investors. Make sure you check out the taxes. Insurance. Make sure you get those loss runs. You ask for loss runs in the list of items that you need, because you're going to turn around and shop that property as fast as you possibly can. So you're going to capture that information and go out to the marketplace to verify the insurance. Because let me tell you something. They put the insurance premium in the trailing 12, and you think, okay, I'll just use the same number because this is going to be easy. No, you might end up getting an entirely different policy. And it could be a rude awakening for you. So you got to verify the insurance. You got to make sure that you can get another policy at about that rate. So definitely make sure that you're checking those things out. Insurance. Okay, then property management. Obviously, depending upon the size of the property, between anywhere from 3 to 10%. Carpe diem. Identify yourself. I sound like an air traffic controller. Carpe diem, ident, because that's exactly the right answer. And I want to know who you are, because you sound like you must be a student of mine. The reason why we look for 3 zeros in a deposit statement is because no rent collection ever equals 3 zeros when your deposit is not going to equal $10,000 exactly to the penny. But if the property is hurting and the owner has to make a cash infusion, he's not going to make it out for $9,363.22. He's going to write a check for $10,000. And that's what you're looking for in those deposit statements. Any cash infusion from the owner. Red flag. All right. Good answer, Carpe Diem. Bravo. Okay. You don't want to tell me? Tell me in a private chat, Carpe, if you don't want to get your name out there. All right. So, let me see. Property taxes, insurance, property management fee, repairs and maintenance. Okay. Now, one of the red flags on repairs and maintenance is, especially if you see the property has gone through a value add, if the property is, or they've renovated a few units. What the owner will do is he'll try to take some of those repair and maintenance expenses and call them capital expenditures and put them below the line. And when he does that, he drives up the NOI and he makes the property more expensive. But when you go in there to do it, you've got to make sure that, hey, these aren't real capital expenditures. These are turn costs. These should be included in the operating expenses. And then when you do that and it modifies the NOI and the financial statements that they gave you, this property is not going to be as valuable as you think it is. And don't overpay for a property because you were afraid to call the owner on the carpet for how he's accounting for these things. No, Folks, remember, you're acting as a fiduciary. If you were doing this on behalf of your mother, you'd call them out, wouldn't you? Well, do the same thing here. Remember, this is their chance. If any of you have ever heard me teach or read my book, you hear me talking about Daddy Warbucks. Daddy Warbucks. This is his one last chance to make that $1 million $1 million gain off his property that he's been holding on for years. So make sure that you are checking his accounting, crossing his T's and dotting his I's. And if he's pulling a fast one on you, he's actually pulling a fast one on your children. Don't let him do it. All right. Repairs and maintenance, general and administrative. I mean, if it's a big size property with a large management office, yeah, the G&A should be, a couple $100 per unit per year. But overall, if it's a smaller property, G&A is not even going to be, it'll be non-existent. Contract services, especially if you don't have much of a property management office, smaller property, most of your expenses are going to be through contract services, third-party contracts. So that number should be higher. Make sure you see the breakdown of who he pays for contractors. If there's nothing on there for pest control, that's a red flag. Do you buying in Louisiana state? No, I don't see a whole lot of rent growth in Louisiana. And I know that's one of the biggest problems that I've seen is that I just don't, Alabama actually has a better story to tell. Huntington, Alabama. Ross Williams. I know. Oh, Ross, you're a client of mine, aren't you, Ross? I think you are. All right, cool. That's good. All right, so let me go back to what was I just saying about the repairs and maintenance? The contract services. So let me type in another question. Here's another question for you. What does it mean when the property has no expenses for pest control? All right, here's another one, Ross. See if you can answer that one. What does it mean when you're looking at the financial statements and there's nothing for pest control? And of course, this is not, I mean, I'll accept many different answers, but I have one answer that works well for me. Landscaping, snow plowing, plumbing, HVAC, all these types of contract services, you need to understand what they're paying for and what they're not. Okay, let me see. Taxes, insurance, marketing. Oh my gosh, I was looking at one property the other day. The marketing was through the roof. It was like $2,000 or $3,000 a month. That didn't make any sense. Now let me explain to you that marketing is it's a dynamic expense. And what I mean by that is it changes as the life of the property changes. So if the property has if the property has 50% vacancy, you better see a lot of money being spent on the marketing. If the property is 96% occupied, you probably shouldn't expect to see a whole lot of marketing. And this particular property had a lot, and they were fully occupied. That's when they get a really good-looking apartments.com rep. And that's how that works. And I'm not saying that it's a woman, okay? So come on. Could be a good-looking guy too. I know how you think. All right. So marketing, just like I teach all of this in my program, so you can see exactly how every line item has a story. And the whole point that I try to get my students to become is I want them to be able to read a trailing 12 financial statement of a multifamily property and know, just by looking at the categories, just by looking at the numbers, what a day in the life of that little old lady who's been the property manager for the last 20 years is like. And you can tell because the numbers tell the narrative. The numbers tell the story. And that's the beauty of numbers. Some people are great English majors, some people are math majors, but they both get stories from what they're doing. All right. So there we finished up. We finally mapped out the trailing 12 based upon, and this is kind of a pro forma. Actually, let me take that back. This is not the pro forma. A pro forma is forward looking. What we're doing is trying to make sure over the last 12 months of what they say it's worth is what it's truly worth. So that's the first step in the financial due diligence. Once you've gone through everything, and I mean, I'm just giving you the primer on it. Once you've gone through everything and you say, you know what, we're ready to go. We want to go out there and see the property. All right, now you're going to go out and see the property. Now remember, this is all happening during the due diligence period of the purchase and sale contract. But if you use my contract, I just sound like an Italian, but if you use my contract, then you're going to have wording in there that allows you to inspect the property right up until the closing date. And there are very good reasons for that. But during that inspection period, that's when you can get out of the deal without losing or putting your earnest money up at risk. Oh, thanks, Molly. Oh, and Molly would know. So you want to make sure that that you get all the legal and the financial done with enough time for you to get out there to physically do the inspection. And that's why we always want to make sure that the period for inspection does not start until you have all the documents in your office. Okay. You don't want to be sitting around waiting for bank statements on the 29th day of the inspection. Terminate the contract. Just terminate the contract. Come out of contract. Wait for the stuff and then go back under contract. So you'll believe me, you'll be better off. So always remain in control. Okay, so Carpe Ross says that they're treating pests only when a tenant complains, not proactively. That's a good answer. That wasn't the one I'm looking for, but that's a very good answer. But here's what I was looking for in my analysis. When a property is struggling financially, the pest control is the first vendor that gets cut. And if that's not showing up over the last 3 months, guy hasn't hired a pest control person, that's a red flag. And you ask the property manager, well, because we don't have a pest problem. Yeah, you're an apartment building. Every apartment building has a pest problem. So that's baloney. And if you go back and you look at his trailing 12 and you see he's had 5 different pest companies, you know there's a problem. Okay. So that's the there you go, the financial. Now let's talk about the physical. Now, the way the physical works is you got 2 ways you can do it. You can either do it yourself, which I don't recommend if it's not your thing, or you can hire a property inspector. Now, here's how I started it. I got to keep my eye on the time. When I first got started, my first property was a 40-unit apartment complex, and I hired a house inspector to go in there and inspect every unit. I think I paid him $300 per unit. Is that right? 40, yeah. $300. I paid him $1,200 overall. I think the guy thought he had hung the moon because he had never made $1,200 on one day of inspections in his life. Well, he inspected it like a house inspector would inspect, but it didn't do me any good as the owner operator. So as I grew in my role, I learned what to do and what not to do. The first thing is that the physical inspection of each unit, though important, is not the end all. Everything that's wrong with the unit can be fixed with money. The real physical inspection takes place in the filing cabinets in the manager's office, because that is essentially what you're buying. The real estate is secondary. The real estate is nothing more than a factory that creates a product, and the product is in the files in the filing cabinet. It's lease contracts. That's the product that we generate in our business. Nothing happens in our business until a lease is signed and money exchanges hands. So that is the biggest thing that you need to be concerned about, is the quality of the lease files. You want to go in there. You can have somebody else go to the physical. I'm going to talk about the physical in just a moment, but I'm going to start right here at the most important, which is the lease audit. You have to go in there and do a full, complete lease audit. You got to check to see if the files are in order. You got to see how they handle renewals. Where are the renewal terms? And most of this stuff is now automated. It's online. You send people DocuSign. It's beautiful. So you get you look to see about any pet addendums, pet deposits. Make sure the security deposit on the lease matches up with the security deposit on the rent roll. Remember, if you're going to the closing table and you're basing that transfer of the security deposit from the rent rolls, and you never confirmed it with the leases, which one controls? The lease controls. That's the contract. And so the lease document says the security deposit's $300. Well, then you find out that on the rent roll it says it's only $200. You show up at the closing table, you're $100 shy the day you own that property. You don't want that to happen to you. Okay, so make sure that you sit in there and match up the information that's on the lease with the information that's in the rent roll. All right, you want to make sure that the person who's going out there to do the physical inspection has the rent roll with them, because you want to make sure that, oh, look at this one says that only one person lives here. Then why are there 14 mattresses on the floor and I see 7 different boots? True story. Hey, this one says there are no pets, but I got kitty boxes all over the place. What happens? True story. So these are the types of things that you want to make sure that the what you're buying, those leases, that's the only thing of value here. Because remember, if you have no leases, you have no money. How valuable is the property if there are no tenants? Now, do you see it's not about the real estate? It's about the leases. All right. So once you've done the full and complete audit and everything looks good, that's going to help you go back and figure out exactly what you can do with this property as far as the rentals. And this is the other thing too, is if you're looking at rentals, if you're looking at renewals, you can go back and check the renewals, see what type of rent increases have these people been getting every year. How much are we going up by? So that's the key. Okay. So the next thing is the physical inspection. All right. So I had the guy do it. I paid him big money. But then what I found out is I can do the inspection, the physical inspection of each unit myself, but I can't check the roof. I can't check the foundation. I can't check the HVAC. I can't check all of those things. So I hired an inspector for those items. And there's also, you can get inspectors for plumbing. They shoot the camera down the pipes to tell you what they look like. That is invaluable. Okay. So there are all different types of inspectors that you can hire. You just don't have to hire all of them. You don't have to hire them to go out and look at every one of the units. It's just not worth it. Okay. All right. So here's what I do when I inspect a unit. I walk in, stand on the threshold. I take a big smell, not to see what they're cooking for dinner that night, not to see if they didn't wipe their shoes the night before. I smell for mold. Everywhere I go in that unit, I'm smelling for mold. I'm looking up in the ceiling, the cracks. I'm looking for any place there's water. I want to see water damage. Not the only 2 things that can kill your apartment complex: water and pedophiles. So we're looking for those. That's the other thing. Back doing the lease audit, you want to do a criminal credit background check. You want to see that they've done it as well, and you want to also make sure that anyone over 18 has a criminal background check as well. And you want to make sure that anyone over 18 is on that lease. They have to be. That's part of the con. At least most of my leases, you want to get anyone over 18 has to be on the lease. Okay. So, you stand, you smell, you look for water. You can go and look underneath the cabinets and stuff. Most of the time, it's loaded up with stuff. But here's the thing you want to answer yourself: is if this person moved out tomorrow, what's it going to take for me to turn this unit? Am I going to have to come up with new flooring? Am I going to have to, obviously, I'm going to paint, but it kills. Does the place smell? These are some of the things that you look for. So, and also remember, I'm just right now talking about the micro level. I'm not even talking about the street level. I'm talking about the unit level. Let's take a look at not even at the the walks, the sidewalks, and the parking lot. Take it out when you are driving to this property. After you've had your nice waffle breakfast at the Ramada Inn or wherever you're staying, I call them the waffle hotels. After you've done that and you're driving out to the property, you've got to look at your map and think, am I 5 miles out, 3 miles out, 1 mile out? If it's an A-class property, you want to start looking at your competition and what the neighborhood is like 5 miles out as you're driving in. Because people who are Class A tenants have mobility. Their job is probably a half an hour away. So they can move anywhere they want. And everything between 5 miles to the property is going to be your competition. So you want to see what is your competition, write down the names, look to see what they're doing for the marketing, get down their phone numbers, make sure you call or go back and see them and do a secret shopper. B-class residents, 3 miles. C-class residents, 1 mile. C-class residents are immobile. They need a bus line. They need to be near, everything needs to be near them. And of course, you're going to be seeing the check cashing places, the gold bought here type of places. And that's your typical neighborhood for a C-class property. But just remember, that's how you need to drive up to these properties. And as you drive up to the property, the number one thing you are looking at, even before it's, the curb appeal and how nice it is and what have you, the number one thing you're looking at that property is, where does the water go? You always want to ask yourself the question, where does the water go? Because remember what I said, number one killer of a property is water. So, if you're looking to buy property in Cincinnati, the thing is Cincinnati is built on 7 hills, and they put one a 7 building complex with one is down the bottom of the hill. Oh man, you go in there and you smell the basement, and it is disgusting because all the water flows downhill. So you want to look at that property and look at, okay, when the water hits the roof, how do my gutters look? Okay, they come down the drain pipe, and then where do they go? Do they go underground, take it to a French drain? Is everything being pulled away from the unit? These are the types of things you want to look for, and then look at the parking lot. Does water pool anywhere? Are there drainage caps? Are they cleaned? All these types of things. You want to get water off your property as quickly as you possibly can. All right. So keep that in mind. Let me see. Physical. Okay. So that is kind of it for physical. If you have any questions, I'm going to start reading the questions right now. That's kind of it for the physical due diligence. So we had the legal, the financial, and the physical. And once all of those things are okay, then at 30 days, you've got to make a decision. Are you going to let your money go contingently hard? If you have a finance contingency, is your is your earnest money going to go contingently hard? That's what you have to think about, and that's where we come in. We'll sit down and talk to you and say, okay, this is it's are you ready to play with the big boys? Because after this point, you're not fooling around anymore. All right, so let me go over here. What does it mean when the property has no expenses? What does it mean, Molly? The tree. Okay, it will not pass a termite pest control inspection. Insurer may not give you the deal. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. That would so what happens in that particular case is what I'm talking about, Steve-O, is during the physical inspection or the financial inspection, we're looking at the financials. This is where we see the problem. And then when we go in, we do the physical inspection, we can see if there's any negative impacts to the fact that there's no pest control on the line item for the trailing 12. But what you're saying would come up in a property inspection report done by the bank. When you sign up with a bank and you pay your application fee, part of your money goes towards a physical needs assessment, a P&A, and that is that's done by the bank. And if there's any problem with the termite or pest control that the bank is going to see, it'll be on the P&A, which comes in after our earnest money is hard because we no longer have the inspection period to fall back on. So that's a good point, but you're a little bit late. You're a little bit late. So what are the pest control, the physical needs? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about something else in just a moment. Let's see this now. I say that because I've come across lenders, insurers that will not underwrite or insure the property as there was no termite bond on property, and the lender wants you, the buyer, to recertify. Oh, Steve, I have not seen that yet. But let me just tell you something, Steve. I heard something for the first time today, and I'm going to share it with all of you. And let me just write it down so I don't forget it. Let me just say here, it was all right. And yeah, this is excellent. What time is it? Because I got to keep my eye, because this next thing I'm going to tell you is kind of a long one, but it kind of goes right along with what you're saying, Steve. All right, Zay, which will cost some dough, and there could be hidden problems, and the insurer is not in the mood to take the risk. Tell me about it. Yeah. Well, okay. So let me wrap it up here by telling you this that I just heard from one of my clients. And the reason why I think this is now becoming a problem is because it has happened to me on a deal I'm doing, and it's happened to some of my clients recently. And in 20 years, I've never heard it happen before. All right. So listen to this. So there's something regarding property insurance. Now, I also deal in the property insurance. That's why some of my clients call me for that. There's something called coinsurance. And what it means is that you have to maintain a certain level of value on your property for the insurer to pay off on the claim. And here's what I mean. If your property is worth $1 million, you need to buy $1 million worth of protection for that property, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? Well, not everybody knows that, or not everyone has that, goes out to buy it at full face value. So they may be off. But what happens if they're off? Do you still then have to, are you denied the claim because you're not at $1 million? And the answer is no, you don't. Because the insurer bills in a little fudge factor that we call coinsurance. Now, the coinsurance could be zero, nil, as they put in the policy. The coinsurance could be 90%. The coinsurance could be 80%. And what that means is, for the insurance company to pay a full claim, your value that you're insuring for must be within 80% of the value, the true value of the property. So especially in these inflationary periods where the properties are going up and up and up, you got to keep bumping up the value, the insured value of your property, to stay within that 20% window, or you're going to have a problem getting a claim paid. All right. So I'm in the process of buying a property, and we had a huge go round with the lender regarding the coinsurance, because our insurer would only sell a coinsurance policy. He wouldn't sell a nil policy or replacement cost policy. He only would sell something with a coinsurance. That's the way their program works. But of course, he gives, rest assured, I've never had that come into play in any of my claims on policies. Yeah, but you don't want to be the first one, do you? So you've got to make sure that you tie in the coinsurance with the value of your property, or find a policy that doesn't have any type of coinsurance requirement. The call I got today from one of my students is, "Hey Charlie, I got this property, and the bank has now hit me with a forced place insurer because it has 80% coinsurance. I've had this policy for 3 years, the same one, along with the exact same carrier, the same lender, and they never gave me a problem before." And I said, "Well, can we get like grandfather in?" No, no, they're gonna get they've paid me back the money that they were hitting me for the forced place insurance. But at renewal time, I've got to go out and I've got to get a new policy that doesn't have coinsurance. It is crazy. What do I do? I said, "Well, I'll put your quote together and send it out to bid on your behalf, and we'll see how it works." He goes, "Okay, let's do it." Um, let's see. So that's the thing that everybody's looking for, because the banks are like, if we can get out of some of this habitational risk, we're going to do it. We're going to force them to have to pay ridiculous insurance premiums because we want full protection. So if the insurance companies want to stay in this business, they're going to get wise and have to solve that problem for the owners and the banks. So that's the newest issue that we're seeing. What percent of gross rents do you estimate for R&M expenses? Well, once again, it depends on where the property is. So R&M, and it also depends upon the quality of the asset, Ross. So if it's an A-class property, the R&M should per unit should be a lot less. If it's a C-class property, the R&M should be much more. I mean, you're looking anywhere from $400 to $1,000 per unit per year for R&M expenses. Obviously a C-class property, things break down on it much more often than an A-class property. So that's the range that you're dealing with. But the thing is, I looked at a property today. The people have owned it for 40 years, and it has a 35% expense ratio. Now, if I'm looking at that, and now I'm going to go out and do the due diligence, the financial due diligence, I'm going to call BS on that one, because a 40-year-old property, you can't operate it at a 35% expense ratio. With what we're having to pay for insurance nowadays, taxes are starting to skyrocket. We got a property management fee in there about 4 to 5%. Right, just out of those items alone, that's 35% expense ratio. And then we got to pay everything else on top of it. I don't think so. And obviously the people who own it are also the ones who are doing the people who own it are also the ones doing the property management, and they're also probably doing the I bet they built the property, and they're contractors, and they just go out there and fix any problem. They don't bill it back to the property the way they should. So those are some of the things you need to look out for. There are all these trips and issues, and I have a program to teach you how to do it. If you want more information about it, reach out to Molly or me. And I know that sounds like a TV show. And we'll be more than happy to get you over different types of programs that we have that walk you through the due diligence process. Okay, so let me just do a quick little look-see so that I can tell you what's coming up next week. Oh, next week's going to be a fun one. All right, because next week what we're doing is deal structuring. And what I mean by that is we've just decided that we're going to go forward with this deal. And now we've got to figure out how are we putting the capital stack together. And so we're going to talk about building your capital stack next week. Molly, don't ask me on Wednesday morning what the topic's going to be. I just gave it to you. How to build your capital stack. And that's going to take into consideration the debt and the equity. Okay. And it'll be a nice, fun discussion, and bring your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. But I think I got everything. Yeah, I think I got everything. What owner? Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. I nailed it again. So fun. Let me see. Cool. Hey, Deb. All right. Good to see you all. Always a pleasure. Let me see if I can. Oh, I see. That's how that works. All right. Good to see you all. Always a pleasure. And we will talk again next Wednesday. But also this coming Thursday, I've got my hotels to homes conversions with my partner, David Peters, at 4 p.m. On this YouTube live channel. And we're going to go through more. I'm going to keep quizzing him on conversions. And I think that's it. All right, everybody. Great to see you. And I'll talk soon. Be safe.